Hi everybody, my name is Erin and this is Daily Elevations. And since yesterday we kind of started with this love yourself into really awesome sleep hygiene, I thought I'd continue on that vein with love yourself into some good hydration practices. And this is actually coming from a really personal kind of challenge place for me right now. I realize that as I'm going through my day, I'm usually one stop here, one stop there. I do a lot of driving from location to location, and I have a lot of habits of filling up, drinking while I'm driving, drinking water while I'm driving, and have this rhythm of not being able to access water, so then I'm sure to get it where I have it. So being home with access to a faucet all day long, I am somehow just really not in any sort of rhythm with it. And I want to tell you, rather than going into the benefits and why we should drink water, I want to tell you what I've experienced from not drinking water. And I can tell you that the first thing I have noticed is that my skin is like dry and wrinkly. I literally feel like I've aged years in weeks. So for that purely aesthetic, keeping your youth, like get that hydration in. I've also started experiencing hip joint pain. I have had, I've had a lifelong of fun with my hips, but water lubricates our joints. So if we want to actually feel better, feel more mobile in our bodies, not have that back pain, not have that hip pain, shoulder pain, whatever, we need hydration. So get your water in if you're having any sort of joint pain. And then there's also just the idea, and this is interesting, but I've always noticed that when I really get into a dehydrated state, I actually start rejecting water. I don't want it. And a lot of you might be in this place, like, I hate drinking water. It makes me pee all the time. So I want to talk a little bit about that because this is really actually important to understand. If you've ever had a plant that you've let go without watering for a long period of time and you pour the water over it, if you've ever noticed that a dry plant, the water just rolls off the soil and around it, it doesn't absorb. When there's already water in the soil, and you can do an experiment with this with your kids at home if you want to, but if you notice when the soil is wet, then the water goes right in to where the roots of the plant are. And if you think about us, that's how we work too. That's how water works. When water is buoyant, then it can hold water and it expands to include more water. And when things are dry, it becomes so dry, things get so stuck together and so dense that water can't penetrate to create that kind of buoyancy. It just goes around it. So we have to pour more and more water into those dry places. This is why we have like landslides and stuff in dry climates when it actually decides to rain, because the land is not made to absorb water like our richer, more rainy areas are. So this idea of we actually absorb less water when we drink it, when we have less of it in our systems to begin with. And the more water we have, the more easily it is absorbed, which means the more we hydrate ourselves, and once we get that thing where we're actually absorbing the water that we drink, rather than being all shriveled and tight around the water that goes through us. So in the beginning of rehydrating yourself, you're going to pee often. As you get hydrated, you're going to pee less. And dehydration is one of the number one reasons that people might have pelvic kind of urinary pain or incontinence or different things like that. It's kind of a catch-22, but we want to hydrate ourselves. And I know that was a bit of a ramble, and I'm sorry for my inarticulation, but those things happen sometimes. So, one, if you're feeling shriveled, you probably are. You got to hydrate, and you got to be really consistent in the beginning to get that to plump. The other reason why it's really important to stay hydrated is because if we get to that point where we're actually not even desiring water anymore, but we are dehydrated, is that we're going to start desiring food. Like the body's trying to get the little tiniest particles of water if we need it as we can. So if you find yourself walking around yourself being like hungry every 2 seconds, you might not actually be hungry. You might be severely dehydrated. So try having a glass of water instead. And then know that, let's just go into some of the other benefits so that we're all inspired here. Like we want to get that waste out of our system. Water flushes, water detoxifies. It's the second most important thing we can do for detoxification of the body besides breathing. It helps our blood pressure. Our veins are like 90% water. So getting water in there makes our heart and all of our vital organs function so much better. We actually also need it to breathe well. I've noticed that, when I'm like doing my runs and stuff or my walks with my dog, like I'm not breathing as good when I'm dehydrated. Like my body is actually breaking down at a much faster level than when I am fully hydrated. And there's so much evidence and science that actually shows that when you have water, not only does your body take in that water better, but it takes in other nutrients better. So when you think of that soil in the plant, like when it's dry and crackly, it can't take anything in. So water actually allows you to get all of the vitamins and minerals that your body needs to really function. So, keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself lubricated, keep yourself getting all the good stuff, and then do it in a way that's fun. So, just a reminder, coffee, alcohol, and coffee for the sake of the caffeine that's in it, and sodas for the sake that caffeine is in it. Caffeine is dehydrating. Alcohol is dehydrating. So if you're putting those things in, you are not hydrating yourself. And you should actually have 2 glasses of water for every 1 glass of something that's dehydrating for you. And then it's kind of interesting if you could love those bubbles. Seltzer, I always wondered, like, is that dehydrating too, or the bubbles dehydrating? They are not. So feel free to drink all the seltzer water that you'd like, and just know that it takes the body longer to get the water out of that than it would take if you just drank straight water. So don't do seltzer when you're going to go into a workout or something and you're needing that water fast or after a workout, but drink seltzer, when you want to, if you love those bubbles. And then play with infusing your water. There's so many flavors that you can get creative with. There's so many bottles that have cool little kind of things, compartments that you can put whatever fruits or cucumbers or mint or lemon that you want in your water, shake it up, and have that extra freshness. So as we go into the weekend, I hope that you stay hydrated. I hope that you stay absolutely in love with and taking good care of yourself from that deeply feeling place of I get to have water, I get to nourish my body in this fabulous way, rather than the, oh God, I really should drink more water than I am. So stay true, stay you, and I'll talk to you next week.